want to welcome Mario, the director, up. Thanks for being here and making my culture.
You're welcome.
Did you want to say anything first? I got a lot of questions, but I'm going to let, if anybody has questions as well, but I'll let you kick it off.
I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me here.
The inspiration for the film, and could you just give a little bit of insight into that and context?
Well, pretty much, I'm a retired youth probation officer and over 20 years. And what I noticed when I started working in '99, when I had to check the kids' rooms, that a lot of the young black males was dating Hispanic women, and the Hispanic guys was dating black girls because they put the pictures on their wall. And then they'd be on the phone talking to them, so that's where the idea actually came from. So someone gonna make a movie about this. Yeah.
And could you talk about like making a feature film in Oakland, independent film, some of the challenges, surprises, maybe pleasant surprises involved with that?
Well, to make a film is a major challenge first and foremost, but the reason why I'm able to get away with what I'm able to get away with by filming in Oakland is because I'm born and raised there. So as a kid, you know, I was all throughout the city. And you know people, I was an athlete, so a lot of people remember me. So when it comes to locations and things of that nature, people remembered me, and I wasn't a bad person. So I was able to use a lot of locations that I had to pay a small fee for. And then I'm thinking of the film commissioner's name. He also helped me out a lot as well. So if you're good to people, people will be good to you as far as all those locations that we use, like the when I was playing that scene, the agent, that particular restaurant, I'm really cool with the owner there. The nightclub that I had, one of my line producers, the salon, just a lot of people, new people, and they allowed us to go there and film. So, doing a film isn't easy at all, which, but you just got to be persistent. We persistent. We shot that like right before the pandemic in 2017, and then it came out like 2019. But, making a film is difficult, but it's so weird because I do films, obviously, but I had to get a real job because when you do films, you think you're going to do a movie, you think you're finna make some money. That's not how it works. So that's why I had the probation job, because of the fact that pretty much financed a lot of the films that I've done, working overtime and things of that nature. So on the weekends, that's when I would do my films. But I would tell somebody, I don't want to ever discourage anybody. But you just can't put all your eggs in one bucket, because I did have some people help me out financially, but the only reason why they helped me out because they knew that I was very persistent, and they knew this was a dream of mine. And the first thing they said is, I'm gonna invest in you because you invested in yourself. So never expect somebody to invest in your project if you're not willing to invest in yourself. And that was the reason why I was able to get it done, because people saw, well, he's putting his own money into it. He's just not coming and asking me, put your money in. He already put up his money. And then they knew my character. They knew that by any means I was gonna get this film done.
Can you talk about the music and kind of how that came together?
Yeah, well, quiet as it's kept, the person who did the score was somebody who worked with me at Juvenile Hall, who actually does music, like I said, on the side. So we ended up hooking up doing music. And then in reference to the soundtrack, me growing up and knowing a lot of people, people contributed to the soundtrack. Like, for example, there was a movie that was shot here last week, was shown here last week, called Even Before. And the star of that particular movie is actually my cousin. Her grandmother and my mother are sisters. Now, at the beginning of my movie, the woman who was singing, that was her. So, people like her, we grew up and she had music, so you just have to try not to burn no bridges, because you never know when you're gonna need somebody for their assistance. And that's pretty much how the soundtrack came together, like Too Short, Quiet as It's Kept. I shot a couple of musical videos for him back in the 90s, and we always stayed in close contact. So when I said, I'm gonna need a song from somebody who's really popular, reached out to him. He says, I got you, and he gave me that song that was at the opening of the movie. So I never burned any bridges.
Do you feel like, after making the film, do you have any new insights into interracial relationships? A lot of the themes, family, that come up in the movie. What are your thoughts? And seeing the movie again today, do you have anything?
Well, I just like how we are evolving. Like, we know it's Pride Month this month, so my whole thing is you got people are being accepted for who they are. So how come a person can't date outside their races? To me, it's the same thing. As long as you with somebody that makes you happy, that's what it's all about. So I'm kind of glad I made this type of film because it just opens up in reference to culture. You should respect everybody's culture. You respect, as long as whoever they want to date, as long as they're not bringing no harm to anybody, I think it's all good. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad I did make this film, because it's now a communication piece. It makes people talk about their races. Like if somebody's dating outside their race, you can talk like, you know, what's making you want to date this person? What do you know about their culture? Because the biggest thing we feel is it going to ruin somebody's culture? If anything, it's going to educate. Because if you got two different races, now you're going to know about both cultures. And if you have any type of siblings, the good thing, I mean not siblings, any kids, they're going to know about both cultures. And then that's how we expand, and that's what makes this world a beautiful world.
Any questions for Mario? If you want to maybe speak about like current projects, upcoming, or if there's any investors in the house, if you have any like bucket list projects.
Well, pretty much we'll be doing a film next summer. And it's kind of ironic because now I teach full-time at a middle school. And the film is called Vilified. It's about a black widow man raising his two sons in the inner city. And the reason why I want to do this film so bad is because of the fact being a black man in America is not easy at all. And we have a lot of anger issues. Just in general, you know? So in society and in culture today, when you have a responsibility, which is your kids, you have to be that role model for them. You have to watch your actions. And then, by me being in that particular system, being a youth probation officer, I saw a lot of young black males in there. And I'm like, so where's your father? They were incarcerated. So if that father is a positive role model to his kids, that's what them kids are gonna follow. And that's the reason why I wanted to do my next film, Vilified, because it's going to make people step up to the plate. And my biggest thing is if you have a kid, you got to be that responsible. Not only that, is you have to teach them right. It's so amazing to me that I'm a teacher now and how the kids talk to each other, how they talk to adults. No respect whatsoever, but I demand my respect from them. But this is going to be a film that's going to put a message to them. You just cannot talk to, because when it comes to somebody who's an elder, they put their time and they put their work in. You should want to get knowledge from them because they made it. And that's pretty much what my next film, Vilified, is going to represent. Because, you know, for myself, and I see people older than me, I give them the utmost respect because they got knowledge. And that's what makes you successful. The mistakes that they made, they're going to, you know, tell you about their mistakes, so therefore you don't make the same mistakes that they made. So that's what this next film is going to represent.
Question? Yeah.
Maybe I missed it, but why did you name it My Culture?
Well, because to me, the whole world is so universal, so it's about everybody's culture. So that's why I called it My Culture, because everybody can consider themselves a culture. Everybody does have a culture, so my culture is kind of like flashy too, like my culture. Let me see what this My Culture is about. Catchy name as well.
With teaching middle schoolers, what is that like these days? Like, if you could talk, like, what are they into, or how do you get them motivated, excited, that age group? People say that's like the hardest age group to be a teacher with.
Oh, no doubt. Well, first and foremost, social media is horrible. That's the biggest issue. And when I stepped in to become an instructor, the first thing I did was stay hated, but then they ended up loving me for it. No phones. You're going to take them hoodies and hats off, and you're going to pay attention. And for whatever reason, I think it's because of my background, because I'm retired. Since I'm retired from our probation job and I went into teaching, it's like, I'm not here for the money. I'm here because I want to educate you guys. So I'm not afraid, and I'm not going to say get in their face, but tell them the truth. And the truth is, if I got 50 minutes to try to educate you guys, I need all 50 minutes of your time. So I don't want to see no phones, and we're going to take them hats off. We're going to pay attention. And the beautiful thing behind my method of teaching is at the end of the school year, I had asked all my kids, so what did you learn from me? And the things that they said, you're strict, you're disciplined, but I like your structure. Kids need structure, okay? And kids want to be in an environment with structure, but sometimes people are afraid. And if you're afraid, they can see the fear. And the things that they were saying was so beautiful. And the good thing about my next film, it is involving somebody who's in middle school as well as in high school. So I'm really getting to know how they talk. So when I do my film, it's going to be so on point because that's this generation. And that's another reason why, because at first I was a sub, but then I was so well with the kids, they said, we got to get you full time. And I'm like, no, I ain't got no problem with that. Because like I said, making movies, if you think you're finna just make all this big money, it's not going to happen. Not unless, some people do get lucky and more power to them, but the more majority of the people, they ain't going to make the money that they think they're going to make. So you got to always have something to fall back on. And one of the most beautiful things that I could say about me teaching was my students did background checks on me, right? It's, okay, who is this teacher, right? And one of the most beautiful things that I was hearing a lot was, wait a minute, he's actually just a normal person. So he's letting me know that I can become somebody who's out there. So I gave so much inspiration because they just see, wait a minute, he's just a normal guy. And he's trying to give back. So when you have stuff like that, I may have, out of the 120 students that I taught, I may have around 20 filmmakers in there. Because I'm inspiring them. And I told them, you guys got advantage. What do you mean? Because I'm going to be around for a while. You may want to get into filmmaking. Guess who can help you? Me. Because I teach multimedia. So that's giving them hope.
Do you think, is there a silver lining to social media? Like, what would you say to a young person in middle school about that? Like, how should they use it if they're an artist or creatively inclined?
First thing I would tell them is look in the mirror and love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you're not going to make it. You're going to have a whole bunch of naysayers. And if you believe in yourself, the sky is the limit. But I also tell them, what you put into something is what you're going to get out of it. You got to put the work in. But I tell them all the time, you got to believe in yourself. Matter of fact, I kind of always do this when, with all my students, my first day, in all my classes, I was like, you know what I see in here? I see nothing but a bunch of winners and successful people. You talk to me, I'm like, yeah, I can see it in your eyes. You got to give people confidence. And as an instructor, if you implant that they're going to be special in life, they're going to start thinking that. They're going to start thinking, and then I have to be that role model for them. So I have to watch how I talk, how I carry myself, because they're looking at everything that you do. So if you implant that in them, and you look in their eyes all the time when you're talking to them, they're going to start believing in themselves, and a lot of them, they are.
When you watch films in your free time, what are the films or filmmakers that inspire you or that you feel encouraged by?
Well, that's a good question, but I think all films inspire me because you can learn from any type of film, even if it's a bad film, because if it's a bad film, you can learn what not to do. If it's a good film, you learn from what was good about it. And like I was telling my students, anybody can be a critic. And based on what type of budget you have, because when I do watch films, I base it off the budget. So if I'm looking at a film where I know it's not a big budget, I'm gonna give it its utmost respect because I know what it took for them to make it. Now, if you got a big budgeted film and you have a little bit of flaws, and I'm like, wait a minute, just like I'm not trying to throw no salt on a famous film called Gladiator, but there was a particular scene when he was like, is this what you guys want? Is this your king? There was a plane flying over. You know what I mean? So when I see look, I'm like, how did you guys make that mistake? You know what I mean? So when I look at films, I look at little things like that. I look at the continuity, I look at the blocking. Because if you got that big money, you shouldn't have no mistakes. But if you're doing an independent movie, you get a bit of leeway. But what I also look for too is when I look at films, I make sure I look at the director's names, and I just look at their body of work. Okay, let me see their next film and see if they improved. Because that's what it's about. It's about starting somewhere and making that progress, and inspiring. So when I look at films, I look at all types of films. I look at sitcoms. I look at just things to try to steal things from them and, just be inspired by whatever I see, it inspires you, And like I said, I take the positive things from what I see from films, and when I see a negative film, okay, I won't be doing that. Question? Yeah.
I don't have a question. I have a couple of comments. One, thank you for making the film. It was so, realistic. The conversations, the dialogue, and then when the camera shows that person's
perspective,
on their, like what they really thought.
Yes.
Right? That was on point. I thought that was on point, right? And second of all, when you said about inspiring people, I did time in juvenile hall and And the thing that inspired me the most was when someone would say, I sat in those seats where you're sitting at, and they went on and did something like what you're doing, or they went on and became more of a viable member of society.
That's right.
But the thing, when you said like they need to see something, right? But when a person says, I sat in those exact seats that you're sitting in, and now I'm here today,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you it's possible.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel when I look at your movie. It's like anything is possible. So I just want to say thanks for making the movie.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And that was pretty much me wanting to make the movie, was just what you said. It's just the fact that you gotta believe in yourself and you gotta keep it real. And that's why a lot of the things that were said in my movie, we wrote that in there, is because of the fact people know when they see fakeness. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I was so successful with the film and with my students, is because when I'm talking to them, I'm looking in their eyes and I'm showing them that I'm there for them, because that's what it's about. And you gotta have confidence. And I said, don't get confidence, interfered with arrogance. Because I tell all my students and the people that I work with, thank you, because whether you're doing my craft services, my makeup, my security, I can't do this without you. So I try to tell them, in order to be successful, you have to work with people. And then you have to watch your attitude, because I think there's been films when I first started, I was a little arrogant and I would yell at people, but I was young. I didn't know, I'm just fresh out of college. That's when I started directing. So then you get a chance to look back like, wow, I don't want to be that person. So you learn from your mistakes. But one of the most important things is you have to learn how to work with people. And that's why I wanted to make this movie my culture, because just because I'm black, I need every ethnicity to help and support me. So I think it's important to understand other people's cultures and give them the utmost respect. So therefore, when it comes time for your project, just like a lot of the locations that I used, people knew that I've always been a hardworking individual, and they allowed me to film in their houses and things of that nature, stores, parking lots. And it was all because how I treated people. Now, if I would have been somebody who was a negative person, they'd be, nah, you can't. And that's what I try to tell my students. Be kind to everybody. Like, for example, I was telling some of my students, for those that was negative towards me at the beginning, I'm not gonna help you, because all you do is just talk negative about me. But if you change your ways, I would be, I'll do anything to help you become successful. But I cannot help anybody who's gonna talk bad about me, because apparently you don't believe in me. So that let them know, wow, he's kind of right. I've been negative to this person, but this person's been showing up every day telling me how much of a winner I am. So I was telling them, but if you're negative towards me, why should I help you? Because you're gonna end up stabbing me in the back. So I think it's so important, especially for our youth, and to make movies, because when you make movies, there has to be some type of message. And this was a message that I wanted to give out to the world. Because if you guys go back and look at some of my previous films, there's some pretty violent gangster type stuff, but that was just me and my alter ego when I first started. But then as you get older, you gotta start having that conscience. And me moving forward, because people have come to me wanting me to help them make movies, but I'm like, that's a little too gangster for me, because I've been there, done that. Now I want to inspire. So everything that I'm doing moving forward is definitely going to be an inspiration just to me, just trying to make a shoot 'em up movie, because we already have that. So I'm trying to go down a whole different path, which is going to be very inspiring.
Since you're based in Oakland and grew up there, how would you describe the film community and filmmakers that are working there?
Well, it's grown a lot, because when I first started, when I came out of college, which was 87, I was probably a pioneer in filmmaking. And we were using actual film back then. So today you can make a movie on your phone. And to me, you can be so creative, especially like I said, social media is a beast right now. Like when I was coming up doing movies, we didn't really have an outlet. You would have to go rent a theater out for one day. One day. Now you got streaming platforms. So that's what I'm really excited about. And that's why I think content is important. But I'm thinking what I've been seeing with a lot of up and coming filmmakers is very inspiring. And what I mean by inspiring is I'm very competitive. So when I see a young person making a good film, it makes me take a few steps back. Like, okay, I got my work cut out for that. And that's what I like about filmmaking, is it makes everybody become more competitive, because when you see a good film, it makes you sit down and be like, man, I want to do a film like that. So when you're putting your film together, you're thinking about that because you want to not try to compete with somebody, but whatever you're doing, like you got to set a bar. And you want that bar to be set high, even though you may not make it to that bar, but you have to set goals and you have to set bars. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of filmmakers today, especially out of Oakland, not only Oakland, but throughout the world.
What are like when you make a film and it comes time for getting it shown in distribution, what can you speak about that as far as having it shown in a venue or a theater?
You got to put yourself in a position to win. I've been doing movies for so long, so I put myself in a position where there's a festival or a conference that goes on in LA called the American Film Market. And I was supposed to go there, they had the pandemic, but they had to do it virtual, so you really couldn't mingle with people. It's all about looking at somebody, looking in their eyes. So I went this past year, and my goal was to get distribution. So I went, I ended up meeting up with somebody from Tubi, which was very difficult, but I played my cards right, because one of the presidents, he was on the stage talking, there was about 1,000 people there. I said, I gotta get this dude's cards, I gotta let him know I'm out here making movies, and I wanna be able to be that direct contact where I can go to them and put my movie up so I can have my own film portal. So as the conference ended, but that particular session ended, I put myself, I said, okay, there goes the door, he's gonna walk out that door, and it's where that woman's at right there. As soon as excuse me, sir, my name's Mark Brown, here's my card. And then I ended up reaching out to him through the email. I couldn't get it. Then one of my productions assistants that works with me ended up getting that person's number. Called him up, he answered the phone. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird, but I was ready for this opportunity. We ended up speaking. He said, you know what, I do remember you. And then he ended up hooking me up with the opposition person. And now, me moving forward, I got distribution with Tubi TV. So, but I also tell a lot of up and coming people that make movies, you can come to me and I'll get your movie on Tubi. And that's only the beginning, because once we got our film portal, which is going to go up in November, we're going to start reaching out to Netflix and a whole bunch of others, Hulu, because that's what it's about. So I went from just a filmmaker having a hard time getting my film distributed to now I'm that acquisition person. But that's because I put myself in a position to win. Went to a conference, I wanted to meet somebody in particular. They was on the stage in the conference, and I said, I'm going to go stand by that door. And I went out of my way, because that was the whole reason why I went, was for that one moment. And one of the most inspiring things is when I left that, and I'm like, man, I actually did it. Because that's what it's about. Otherwise, it would have been a wasted trip if I did not. My whole thing was distribution. Been making movies for so long, had distribution deals with people, which they take forever to pay you. They give you all these excuses. It's like, so, but I'm a stand-up individual, so that's why I want to put myself in the position that I'm in now. So now I am the middleman. So, but I want to help other people, but I'm not trying to get over on them, and I keep it real with them and I play fair. And that's going to be my key to continuing to move forward.
What changed in your style? Like you mentioned your earlier films several years ago, being interested in more like shoot 'em up, gangster movies. What did you learn, or what how did that evolve? Can you speak personally about that?
I matured. I matured. That's what life's about. Life is about maturing. You cannot just be somebody who, not to say that I was ever self-centered, but I was one of the first to start making films, you know what I mean? But you start to, that's why I said look in the mirror, because you start to see somebody in the mirror like, man, I don't want to be that person, you know what I mean? I'm gonna start walking down the street and speaking to people. You gotta change your ways if you want to be successful. And I changed my ways, and as I said, as you get older, you get more mature. It's not about you, it's about the project. It's about the message that you're trying to put out. And I think from when I started to where I'm at today, it's just a maturity thing. And then talking to people, when I was inside juvenile hall, some of them kids was telling me in juvenile hall, because I made this one movie called Town Business, which was a shoot 'em up movie, which I'm very proud of, but they were glamorizing that, because it was a shoot 'em up movie. And I'm like, wow, I don't want to be, how do you want to be remembered? Okay, so I'll put it like that. I want to be remembered, he was a hard-working dude that put out good movies, and he had a good conscious awareness. So as I continue to move forward in my filmmaking career, it's just about how do you want to be remembered. And when I had a lot of them students write down what they remembered or what did they learn from me, it's like, okay, it's working, because the things that they were saying was what I wanted to get out of them. So I know if I was to pass away today, a lot of them students would be heartbroken, because I was an inspiration to them. And not only that, I see youngsters that I was in juvenile hall with that I see that are now grown kids say, hey man, you were such an inspiration to me because all I did is what I'm doing now, I did it with them too. Hey, you made a mistake, you in here, but that's not gonna be your life because you get to get out. You're not gonna be in juvenile hall forever. So when you get out, you gotta find yourself a new set of friends. You gotta start thinking for yourself. And that's so rewarding when you're out in society. When people, hey, you remember me? Which I don't remember them because they, I'm older now. But then they'll say, hey, I was on Trinity, when you was on Donner. I'm like, wow, and you were such an inspiration. So, yeah, that's what it's all about, is being that positive role model. So when you get to come older and a filmmaker, people are watching. People are watching you, so you have an image. You have to brand yourself. So I wanted to make sure that me branding myself was going to be a positive brand, opposed to a negative brand. Because if you're negative, oh man, that dude is negative, you can't say nothing to him, where I want to be that person that you can approach.
Any other questions before we go? Did you want to mention anything else you have coming up, any screenings, events, or maybe the best way people could get in touch with you if they want to work with you, collaborate?
Well, I'm an open book. The best way to catch up with me is, if you know my name, Mario Bobno, if you would just Google it, my company will pop up. I have a YouTube channel, which I'm always showing content, but that's the best way to follow me, is just Google my name. And I'm the type of person, this is one thing I will say I like about my character, is sometimes people will just randomly call you up, right? Leave your message on my voicemail, right? I get back to it. Regardless of what it is, some stuff be crazy. I'm like, okay, well, let me get back with you. But I return phone calls because, like I said in the past, you call people up and they don't call you back. That's very hurtful. So I don't care what it is, who it is, a baby to somebody who's on their deathbed. If they call, I make it a point within 24 hours to return their phone call and talk with them, because they may have one hell of an idea, or they may want to invest. So for me, if you get in contact with me, leave a message or shoot me an email, I return the emails. And if you leave me a message, I met you at the screening at the Claire, oh yeah, you know what I mean? That was cool, wasn't that many people here, but I remember who you were because you know what I mean? But, so that's important to me. Or if I'm bumping into somebody on the street and they know who I am and I give them my card, I remember the things. That's why I said my mind is pretty sharp, and I'm really happy about that, so I don't forget. Yeah, but if you get in contact with me, I will get back in contact with you.
Thank you for being here and making the movie, all your insights that you've shared. Hope to have you back again sometime.
Love to. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm very humbled.
Have a good night, everybody. Feel free to chat with Mario before we head out. We'll see you in September for more movies.